guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, or in this case tonight, we'll be covering part 3 and the conclusion of the story I've been covering earlier, all about the guy who was about to go scorched earth on his wife after her putting him through an absolute nightmare of a relatively quick marriage. And as you all recall, our guy made a lot of mistakes, smackable moments, when he met her, marrying her, and what he put up with, but now our guy is finally turning the tables and going to end on a high note. So it continues on. He says here, my lawyer had advised me not to press my custodial rights at this point, but allow her to refuse parenting time, which she began to do more and more, the bolder she got. It was a tough few months, but when the time was right and we had established a good history of documented parental alienation, we filed for court intervention and had everything we needed to demonstrate her deceitful nature, unreasonableness, and misuse of the judicial process. Okay, always listen to your lawyer. This is when my wife started angling to get the court to allow her to take my child and leave the state, stating that she had no support without me in our current state. She neglected to inform the court that her parents had moved here and that she was living with them in their house. She implied that I was offering no financial support for my child. She neglected to inform the court that I left her an account for child expenses that she chose not to use. She implied that our child was too young to be taken away from her for more than a couple hours at a time due to breastfeeding. But she failed to mention to the court that our child had stopped breastfeeding 4 months earlier. The good news here, guys, is that the child is obviously very young and hopefully won't remember any of this BS. My wife claimed that she did not feel my child would be safe in my care for any overnight visits and that my time should be supervised. She failed to mention that she'd offered me full and unrestricted parenting time if only I allowed her to move out of state with my child. She claimed that I was selling guns in the black market. She failed to mention I had a federal firearms license and already vetted myself with the ATF by declaring all gun transactions. And they assured me I did not need one and that, regardless, I got one anyway. In retrospect, I should mention, out of fairness to Mercy, that I may have started the paperwork the week after she filed for a restraining order against me, and that I may have forgotten to tell her I had my FFL, while still acting in front of her like I was worried about her using my firearm hobbies against me in court. Either way, it was satisfying as hell to see someone try to make false allegations that you know that they are lies, and then be able to lay the paperwork down for the judge. The look on her face while being glared at by the judge was quite hilarious. You couldn't have beaten that smile off my face with a 2x4. I can imagine. You're probably laughing to this day. Well, my wife saw that her arguments weren't gaining traction with the judge. She demanded that a lawyer be appointed for our child. Depending on the state, this role goes by different names. Most commonly, it's called guardian ad litem, or GAL. A GAL is a court-appointed investigator whose job is to look at both parents' claims, examine the facts, and make a recommendation to the judge about what's in the best interest of the child. Judges tend to give those recommendations serious weight. Yeah, but ultimately they almost always go with the mother. The truth is, I wanted a GAL involved as well. A neutral third party was the fastest way to cut through the noise and establish credibility. But my legal fees were already piling up, and I was looking for ways to reduce my financial hit. That's where a red herring strategy came into play. A red herring is a tactic where you intentionally act as though you oppose something you actually want in order to draw the other side toward it. Instead of arguing against an idea because it's bad for you, you argue against it because you know it's good for you, and you want your opponent to fight for it. The key is subtlety. You don't make a dramatic stand, you show hesitation. You imply discomfort, you give them just enough resistance to make them believe that they're pushing you somewhere you don't want to go. So I initially resisted the GAL. I said we don't need one, and when it came up again, I suggested I wasn't comfortable giving a court-appointed official that much influence over my parental rights. I didn't overplay it, I simply made it seem like it was a step I would rather avoid. Well, then naturally she'll want to do it. Eventually, she pushed harder, and then offered to pay well over half of the GAL fees to make it happen, as she thought she would have me on the ropes, and knew she would ultimately get it if we disputed before the court. As soon as she made this offer, I couldn't sign the paperwork fast enough. Sucker. Well, the GAL conducted a thorough investigation, reviewed the claims, interviewed acquaintances, and the findings did not go in Mercy's favor. In the end, she financed the very investigation that dismantled her own allegations. Awesome. Remember, it was her actions that caused this finding through the GAL. Over the next year, a whole year, the bottom was falling out of Mercy's best laid plans. Her claims grew more and more wild. They spanned from me being a psychopath that was dangerous to her and her family, that my secret hope in having a concealed carry permit was that I would get to take a person's life just to see how it felt, that I was a neo-fascist, that because I was an outdoors man who processed my own meat, this time I proved I was capable of dismembering her and disposing parts in the woods. But the coup de grace was when she claimed I pulled a weapon while performing an exchange for our child. Man, she's just pulling BS out of her ass left and right here. She's sinking herself. See, guys, the length that these types will go. And again, back to the beginning of the story where he saw who she was, who her family was, and yet he still fucking married her. Evil. Well, because of the distance I kept from her, my documentation, and because of the escalating nature of her accusations, I was able to calmly refute every single one of these claims to the point that her crazy was obvious to all involved. Well, thank God for that. Yeah, she's in a corner. She's desperate. The night before we appeared for our second to last hearing in court, I received a message that Mercy's older brother sent to my phone. Things were going poorly for his sister, and they had no idea how I was trouncing them so soundly at every turn. He had a violent past and mental instability. So I had required as part of our agreement before this hearing that he would not be allowed around my child unsupervised. Well, yeah, your ex is labeling you as this dangerous person, meanwhile her brother is the one who's dangerous. I did this partly because it was necessary and true, but I also knew that he would react to it when he found out. We will say he took the news poorly and lashed out. We will say he took the bait. I had actually been a little worried that this plan might not work out, but with less than 24 hours on the clock before our hearing, the ex-brother-in-law came through for me and sent me a death threat. Wonderful. He explicitly threatened to off me and do various other creative things to me, while mentioning the length of his you-know-what 2 separate times in 1 paragraph, along with the colorful things he was planning to do with it. Oh, so this dumbass left a record of this? Was this in a letter, an email, a text? Oh, how smart. I'm not sure that how he thought this text would bother me. It was pure gold and exactly what I was hoping for. I couldn't believe how stupid someone must be to give me a gift like that the evening before going into the court against his sister. I was almost giddy when I printed out the copies of this for my attorney, hers, and of course, one for the judge. What a moron. Effed up family. Well, needless to say, an order of protection was issued that day, just not in the directions Mercy was hoping for. In addition to having lost all credibility in the courtroom, Mercy had also caught hiding assets, missed the deadline for filing financial records, and was at our total mercy heading into the final settlement conference on the eve of the judge doing the deciding for her. Man, I mean, dude, you definitely did a lot of things that helped you here, being strategic and all, but also the fact that these people are complete morons, that helped too. Well, my wife was forced to choose between risking everything in open court with a judge that had seen through her BS or take a settlement that offered her nothing and didn't even put a dent in her legal bills. She may have had 3 lawyers that could advise her personally free of charge, but they did not have a license in my state. So while her family could advise and do some of the legwork, she still has significant legal fees. So these lawyers you mentioned, you said she had family members, not her parents, family members that were lawyers in a law firm, but they were out of state while her parents moved to your state. That's what you said. So, okay. How does she now have a lawyer in your own state? As soon as she showed the lawyers, and did I miss that part here? It says here, so while her family could advise and do some of the legwork, she still has significant legal fees. As soon as she had showed the lawyers in her family the settlement agreement she had been forced to sign, they lost their shit that she got nothing and now had added tens of thousands more in legal debt, and that I got more custody than other fathers. They tried to pull pull out of it in less than 3 days after she signed it, which the judge was less than okay with. Well, I kept the house. It was my down payment, of course. I kept the vehicles, minus her car that I had paid off. She had to pay me back for all her debt that I paid out of her portion of the appreciation on her house. And other than that, some small personal effects. I kept everything. Dude, that's unbelievable. That's fantastic. Couldn't happen to a nicer girl. To top it off, the judge retroactively forced her to cover some of my attorney's fees for the ridiculous lawfare she tried to wage on me. I didn't even ask the court for this. They just got tired of her BS and awarded it to me. Man, you lucked out with that judge. But she also just... I would imagine these judges get so sick and tired of the BS. You know? More than anything else that I got, I have more custody of my child than any other divorced father I've ever met in a contested divorce. And that was my first goal all along. Dude, that's great. Thank God for your boy. I didn't want anything crazy. I wanted 50-50 once our child was old enough to be away from his mom for an extended period of time. I didn't and still don't care about the money, but I will always be there for my child. Well, as any good father would. And even if you got taken to the cleaners money-wise, a smart guy like you who's also disciplined with money, you would make it back. My attorney's fees were over $40,000 and was the best money I ever spent. I sold the house, which had grown significantly in value, paid my attorney, and had enough left over to build a house for me and my child. Meanwhile, my ex was still living at home with mommy and daddy for the last decade. That's awesome. Yeah, the nurse, huh? Live with mom and dad. After years to reflect on this whole entire thing, I'm thankful for both the marriage and divorce. I wouldn't have had my child otherwise, and we have a great relationship together. I love being a dad. It is my favorite part of my life. More than that, having gone through all this, I now have a deeper understanding of the inner workings of male-female relationships, and I'm much more of a man and significantly less naive. Well, brother, you were naive. You made a lot of freaking mistakes. The problem was that you so bad, at that point in your life, got so tired of the hookups and everything, and you wanted a family and all that you just didn't look at all the signs that are right there in front of you, from her family, all that, and married her. And no surprise what happened. I let so much bullshit happen, you know? She's a wacko. But I can't say I did all properly in my divorce. In my weaker moments, I may have let Mercy a few surprises that I still get a chuckle about to this day, when I ponder the look that must have been on her face when she put it all together. I like to think that part of her burned with her we shall call rage, while another, quiet and treacherous part, registered the kind of arousal that comes only from recognizing deliberate and cunning intent. I picture her laying there alone in the dark, muttering something like, "That infuriating, irresistible son of a bitch." She ain't calling you irresistible, dude. She's definitely calling you a son of a bitch. Even though, well, look what she is. Whatever diabolical reckoning followed can only be attested to yet unproved by Mercy, and is best left to the fog of history. But still, one can't help but admire the craftsmanship his hands have wrought. And after all this, could you really blame a guy? However, I didn't share this story to gloat. Well, maybe a little bit, dude. I mean, you made a lot of mistakes, so, you know, there's a balance here. Or at least entirely to gloat. There were rules I followed in my divorce that made all the difference in the world, and I credit them whatever success I had. It wasn't until after my divorce and looking back that I was able to codify them. I've shared these with several dads at the start of their own divorces. Interestingly, 2 of the 3 of them ended up remaining married. Maybe that says something about the women are attracted to in a man. Who knows? Now, he's going to... get a little sick, guys. Bear with me here in this video. I got to get it done. He's going to list a number of things he's learned, and this is very valuable for all guys that go through a divorce and guys in a marriage in case the shit hits the fan. He says, number 1 here, keep the children as the most important people in the divorce. Do nothing to cause harm to your spouse because it is impossible to cause any harm to them without harming your kids. This applies to every sort of harm, whether it be character assassination, physical or financial. You win when everybody wins. Well, I mean, that's kind of hard for a lot of people, given that they're being harmed. 2, do not escalate. Be the voice of calm rationality. Leave if you need to. Never forget the men who lose their tempers lose everything. When her or her family would insult, I would ignore them. When they would scream or make accusations, I would calmly walk away, knowing I just won another battle. Win enough of those and you've won the war. I agree. A lot of guys get themselves into trouble by losing their shit and freaking out and yelling and carrying on for multiple reasons. But it is very difficult to keep calm when somebody's attacking you. And wives and girlfriends that know you well know just the buttons to push to get you going. But you got to remain calm. It is hard. 3, find someone whose judgment you trust and make them your sounding board in interactions with your ex. Listen to their advice, but be cautious of trusting a woman in this capacity, even if it's a family member. Whoever it is, you need people to talk your crazy out with them. 4, speak the truth, or at least don't lie. This is from Jordan Peterson. I spoke the truth even when it didn't help my cause, such as me telling the judge that I believe my ex was a caring and capable mother. I didn't make up accusations, however, I certainly didn't share everything with everyone, because keeping your cards close to your vest is crucial when playing poker and futures are literally on the line of divorce. 5, fight with every penny you got. Get the best attorney you can afford. Beg, borrow, steal the money if you have to, in that order. Failure is not an option for a father, and nothing in nature wants to stand against an all-out onslaught. Yeah, get the best attorney you can get, and making sure it's a good one, and listen to your attorney. 6, follow your attorney's advice. You paid for it, don't waste it. For you, this may seem like the end of the world. For your lawyer, this is just another Tuesday afternoon. Right, they've been through this shit their entire career. 7, memory fades. Document everything. You put that in giant letters. Document everything to the full extent. That is legal for you to do in your state. Overcome the enemy with overwhelming proof of everything. Keep a notebook. Write down only what you know to be 100% true, because one single discrepancy invalidates it all. Use your phone. Log every interaction, including who, what, where, when, and why. Use audio and video surveillance of all your interactions where legally allowed. Right. Key part. Legally allowed. Some places you can't do that. Think Ring doorbell cameras and dash cams that record inside and outside of the cab. 8. Life is not fair for men and optics matter. Accept this, but do not accept defeat. Never be alone with a woman you are fighting against. If it comes down to your word against hers, she wins. Yes, absolutely. Most guys know this. 9. Research every law that could be applicable to your situation and stay on the right side of it. And 10. Be fair, but win. There are many ways of winning a fight. Men have been waging wars for all of history. Women are newcomers to this art. Using tactics against an enemy like deception and speed, implying weakness where strong and strength were weak, preparing the battlefield ahead of time, divide and conquer, or laying out red herrings are not in themselves illegal or immoral. Just be careful in their implementation. He says, fortunately, I was careful to get through my divorce as well as I did. I hope that somebody out there may hear this story and find something in it that they can use, whether it be identifying red flags to avoid or using military tactics to get through a divorce. Thank you, SSM, for your time reading this. I hope you find it suits your channel well. Sincerely, Mercilessly Moral Man. Well, dude, that was one hell of a story. And a long one, but a good one. And you made shitloads of mistakes. But again, that was when you were much younger, less experienced, and you had high hopes, as a lot of young guys do. And you made mistakes in the marriage, but thank God the marriage didn't last too long. And benefit of the doubt, we're going to hope that child is in fact yours. I'm sure you're probably at this point, you've done a test, DNA test or whatever. But, my God, I'm just so glad you got out of there that quickly and you came out on top. But the fortunate thing for you is that her family are a bunch of fucking morons. From her brother making written threats to you, to her behavior and all that, to the things that you set her up to fail. I mean, it was great. And I'm so glad it worked out well. But I know in the end, as you said, the money wasn't your top priority. Your top priority was your son. You said bare minimum you wanted 50-50, but obviously you got a better deal than that. That's great. I just hope her crazy and the crazy of her family doesn't end up in your son some way. I know you'll do everything possible to avoid that. But I would say this junction, I'm pretty sure I can be assured that you're never going to get married again. Why would you? I mean, really, you're in your 40s. You're pretty close to my age. You've been through hell. You have a son. I mean, what the hell's the point of getting married if you're not going to have kids? I mean, seriously, what to save money on the rent or the mortgage, which you could get screwed anyway? Doesn't make any sense anymore, But enjoy your life with your boy, your hobbies, your interests, and all that, and there you go. But lots of good things in this story. So for all you guys out there that maybe right now are in the middle of a divorce, and it seems like it's never going to get better, you're going to lose, or it's just agonizing. Stories like this will show you, yeah, it's hell. But other guys have been through there, lived to tell the tale. And if you play smart, you fight fire with fire. And yeah, you're in a fucking war. You got to use tactics. You got to use short-term tactics, long-term strategy, everything to win. Listen to guys like this. You will get through it. And just for all that's sacred and holy, if you're going through a bad divorce, don't get yourself in the same situation down the road thinking it's going to be different a second or third time or fourth time. It's amazing to me, these people that get marriage after marriage after marriage thinking the next time will be better. Out of their fucking mind. I never feel bad for these idiots. But anyhow, bro, great story. I wish you well. Thanks for sharing it. All right, guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. And be sure to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe. Catch you next time.